Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, the Education Coordinator for Marlene's Market and Deli. Tonight's special guest that we have with us is Cathy Hains. She is a registered dietitian and founder of Lighthouse Nutrition and Wellness, and she's speaking on the topic of nutrition misconceptions about weight loss and wellness, and also 5 weight loss myths and her best tips. So thank you so much, Cathy, for joining us.
And thank you, Elizabeth, so much for that. And yes, I'm Cathy Hains, and very much that you guys are here and participating. I'm very excited about this topic. The title is, the way you explain the title is kind of accurate. Okay, it might have metamorphosed a little bit since I told you that title, so just keep it in mind, but I'll do the best I could. So basically, I have some, one of them's kind of cute. You'll see what I mean, but basically 5 things that I think are kind of misleading when it comes to weight loss. And then I do have one tip that's really important for everybody to understand, even though there's probably so many when it comes to weight management. So we have a situation in our culture where actually almost around the world now where, there's a lot of overweight and obesity. And if you guys don't know already, that is really puts a predisposition for a lot of disease and illness. So that's one of the reasons I really went into this specialty. I'm using a new platform this time, so everybody bear with me. I'm a little nervous it'll work. Here we go. So that's me. I'm based in Gig Harbor, Washington, but I do see clients all over Washington state. So I'm seeing a lot of Zoom clients right now, but we also do in person as well, a little bit. I've been a dietitian for going on 13 years, and I've really loved it. I'm an entrepreneur, so I am in private practice. So for those who stay around for this whole presentation, pop quiz later, no, just kidding, but to prove that you actually saw the whole thing, that's fine. But anyway, when I have the first 3 clients the people who participate, who sign up as a client, will be getting some really, really great gifts here. We have an indirect calometry test. It is an $80 value through MedGem and MicroLife, and also 2 weeks of customized meal plans. And these are really customized to your height, weight, any conditions, high cholesterol, high blood sugar, your taste, ethnic types of cuisines, you name it, for 2 weeks. This is a really, really good deal. And so you do need to be a client, at least briefly, to get these things so that we can assess you properly. But I'm very excited about that. And the test also does these things right here too. And you would just have to contact us after the presentation, probably tonight or tomorrow, probably. Okay, so these are the 5 things. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what they are right away, and then we'll delve into all of them. So the first one is that there are, as we know, there's so many products and programs out there. It's just, I've lost track. I could probably name 20 right off the bat. Weight Watchers is a very classic one. And then you have just so many others, so many other diets as well. Everything from paleo to Atkins to, we'll get into it some more. But anyway, thinking that, well, that person lost a lot of weight, so, it probably is a good diet and I should be able to lose weight also on that. It would be a good thing to do. The second one is that there is an enormous amount with the internet of, as you know, like health advice and weight loss advice out there. So just thinking that I can go with one of those and make my own weight loss program is another one that I could see as a myth. And so the third one is now this one might shock any nutritionist might be listening, but this is a little bit of a theory of mine, but thinking that mindful and intuitive eating are enough. So I don't know if you know what those are, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But that is kind of a new thing when it comes to the field of nutrition. And dietitians and nutritionists have been using this for a little while now, and there are a lot of books on this topic. And it's a good thing, you'll see, but the myth could be that that's all you need. Okay, the other thing is that I think most of us have realized now that carbs must be the bad guy, right? So if you want to lose weight, you have to really drastically reduce your carbs for optimal weight loss, success, and good health. And the last one is I've tried everything. I hear that a lot. Clients will come to me and they say they've tried everything. And so they're ready to, get onto more radical methods of weight loss. Okay. Okay. So this is there's so many nutrition quotes out there. One of my favorite ones is your greatest wealth is your health. Because if you think about it, there's so many things that we can do in our lives, and there, you might have a lot of things you want to do, bucket lists, things like that. But if you don't have your health, then what happens with a lot of that? It really goes south. So I really like this as one of my favorite ones. And it's so important. Your health is something that if our time on this planet, you have a lot of things you want to do and things like that, then you definitely have to keep your health up. Okay. So this is that first one that I was talking about. Yeah. And so there are a lot of diets out there, as you know. Okay. So we're going to just go into some of the most recent ones. Let me move this out of the way here. Okay. So the most popular one right now that I see is a keto diet. I mean, everything. I mean, I can't even buy my extreme wellness fiber wraps without it saying keto diet. The keto is on just in everything. There's now some medications that work for diabetes that are now making the news headlines. The GLP-1 agonists now that are out there. Bariatric surgery, the HCG hormone. Remember that one? That was very popular not long ago. And so we're going to break these down just a little bit more in some of these. So the keto diet, for example, you're eating just 25 to 35 grams of carbs a day. Of course, you're going to lose weight. Definitely. The HCG hormone, that was also down to about 500 calories a day. So a lot of these, there are so many ways to lose weight. And all of them are going to, if you comply with them, if you comply with the rules, it's going to happen. You're going to lose weight. Okay. And so there's usually some kind of restriction. And if you're following the rules for that diet, yes, that's going to happen. The new medications that are out now, it's just killing people's appetites. And so, of course, they're not going to be eating very much on that as well. And so a lot of the grapefruit diet, just about anything where you're actually, and also here's another thing to think about, is that when you are on any kind of diet, you're focused on what's going in, you're focused on things. So you're actually doing something about it. So that's another reason why obviously there probably would be some kind of, success to that. So let's go into a little bit more detail of this. There is a lot of success with some of these things, like the keto diet and the GLP-1 agonists, I meant to say there. But some of the side effects could be pretty serious. And number one thing about keto diet and these medications is there is not a lot of long-term data or research on it. So as you could see in that last slide, I don't know if you saw a little guinea pig, but that's what I was trying to say there, is that we don't really want to do that. We don't want to be experimenting with ourselves at this time. So as you can see here, nausea, vomiting, extreme apathy or dislike of food, possibly pancreatic issues, pancreatic cancer, gallstones, and kidney stones. A lot of these usually from rapid weight loss. I have a client right now who is on Ozempic, and it was my first client to come to me with this medication. And they're losing weight rapidly. And they were not eating very much at all. Well, they are eating, but just like much less than they were before. And one of the things that they I just was informed of is that they had every kind of sickness you can imagine when it comes to infections, upper respiratory in the last month. So there was a COVID, there was a flu, and 2 colds all within that time. So very obviously, if you're not eating well, you're not going to be getting your nutrition in. So, that's very important. Or where's the vitamin C? Where's the zinc? Where's all the other things that can help them with that? And a lot of other things. So the decreased appetite caused nutrient deficiencies, yeah. And also a lot of times without some simultaneous nutrition education. So these patients are not getting, like, for example, the client was telling me they didn't know they had to take all those things, to prevent those kind of illnesses. So we're getting them on that to go along with it. And so definitely an increased risk of gallbladder. I've seen an amazing amount. All of a sudden, it's like so many clients are coming to me now, and they either are having gallbladder disease or had it taken out. So I speculate that it could be some of these diets that the people are on that are causing this. I'm not sure. So again, no long-term studies for efficacy. It's been used for diabetes. In fact, there's been a major shortage for diabetes patients because doctors are prescribing it for weight loss. A sideline note, I was very irritated with a 60 Minutes interview that came out recently, and it seemed very skewed in one direction. It came out a few weeks ago, and it just seemed they were talking all the praises about it. And, and that was it. There was nothing negative about it at all. And there's huge money in this, I'll have to admit. So I'm not going to say any more, but you can speculate. Okay, so the keto diet was created a while back for children with epileptic seizures. There are no good quality control studies for long-term use as a weight loss method. There was one, if you skip down further here, there was one, it said, oh, there's a long-term study. And I said, oh, really? So I went and looked, and it was 24 weeks long. So how many months is that? That's not very long. There's definitely been improvements, because with any kind of major weight loss, you're going to have improved markers. So definitely there's going to be some good things that are coming from it. Okay. And so, but there could be also long-term side effects, kidney stones, gallstones, again, and vitamin deficiencies, because there's a huge amounts of food groups taken out of the diet.
It's taken out of the diet.
So kidney stones, osteoporosis, uric acid, risk factor for gout, fiber usually is decreased. The thing is that, yeah, there's probably a way. I've heard some green ketos and some better plans out there where, even vegetarian keto, things like that. So it probably is a bit healthier profile overall, but you have to really do your homework. You have to really be almost a quasi nutritionist to sit home and figure it out. So I'm thinking to myself, with all the effort needed, even for bariatric surgery and all these other things, if there's that much effort put into that, it's like, have you ever heard the expression, choose your hard? So it's like, either way you go, it's going to be hard. So you might as well just figure out which is going to be the healthiest long-term for you. So nutrient deficiency, fiber, B vitamins, iron, magnesium, zinc, just so many, a lot of times in the whole grains that are restricted from the diet, which we'll be talking about also. So let's see here, let's move it along.
I don't know what it is, so how do I know what?
I have literally 2 slides that I'm trying to maneuver here. Okay, so keto diet, this also came out. There's some risk of AFib also. People getting a low proportion of the daily calories from carbs, such as grains, fruits, and starchy vegetables, are significantly more likely to develop AFib. And that came out recently in the American College of Cardiology. So my take on this is that, do we really have to be very drastic in our attempts to lose weight? My opinion is no, we don't. There was a study that came out, and there's been a couple of these. I was trying to find the other one before this and couldn't get to it. But basically, one study looked at 14 different popular diets. And yes, things got better for these folks. But then after 12 months, the benefits were kind of not that much anymore, all of them. All of those. And there was another one that showed similar results as well. So my question is, when one is considering any kind of diet or weight loss plan, the questions to ask are, do you think the weight will still stay off many years later? Is the quality of life around food going to improve? The relationships towards food. I have a lot of clients come to me, and their relationship with food is really shot when they finally come over to me, and they've done a lot of things. So did the lab markers and health improve long-term? Was it sustainable? That's a big one. That means not too hard to do for a long time, for a lifetime of doing that particular diet. And were there any side effects, illnesses with some of the things that are coming out now? We don't know yet. And how expensive was it? I hear a lot of clients coming to me and saying they're on all these very expensive plans, just to name a few. Ideal Protein. There were just some that were just very expensive. Sustainable weight loss does not need to cost a lot. Not at all, does not. Okay, so what kind of diets have been found to be pretty good so far? So far, the Mediterranean diet. There was a lady on social media who is from the Mediterranean, and she did clarify some things. I didn't have time to put it in here, and it was really good. It was basically saying that when they talk about Mediterranean diets, be careful exactly what you consider to be Mediterranean diet. They apparently eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, more than you would think so on a typical Mediterranean diet. A lot more olive oil than we think so also. So I'm still looking into that myself. I was intrigued by that, but we just have to be careful of what the definition of Mediterranean diet is. But a very special panel, nutrition panel by the U.S. News and World Report had put this out several years in a row that these diets are very pretty sound is what I'm looking for. So the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, is a dietary attempts to stop hypertension. And a flexitarian diet is kind of leaning vegetarian, but not necessarily, but it's definitely has some vegetarian elements. And the MIND diet also, which is a combination of the Mediterranean and the DASH intervention for neurodegenerative delay. So that was basically for trying to figure out how to keep our minds sharp for as long as possible. And so all of these are very, very just whole foods, lots of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, fish and poultry. For the vegetarian vegans, not necessarily so, but and that was on the list too, one of them. I think vegetarian diet was on there as well. Okay, following the general guidelines that I was talking about a little while back. This is just an example of a few. I personally like Healthline, and I source them a lot in my newsletter that I put out. WebMD, kind of like them too. Our own Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, Center for Disease Control, World Health, just so many. MyFitnessPal actually has a lot of really good articles and dietitian resources on them, written by dietitians. Excuse me, and so many more. And they're great. And I think they're all fine, but they are just really a starting point. So what I was getting at when I said the myth, okay, not quite yet. So here's another one, the My Plate, that came out a while back, and it looks great, right? But I always tell people in my classes, it's easier said than done, because it looks really simple, but when you go, let's say you go to Massimo's or Il Lucano or whatever, are they going to put the spaghetti right there and not bring you any bread? No, they're not going to do that. When you go get pizza, the pizza's not going to fall there or even close. It's going to be like taking up the whole plate, right? And then some. So it's all nice and it looks pretty and it looks great, but there has to be more understanding of it, of how it will actually work. And so that's just one of many reasons why I chose this myth. Let's see here. Okay, so there are just so many things that could be going into this My Plate alone of the things to consider. So one of them is eating out, like I said, just even the typical sandwich is not, the bread won't be that small, obviously. And so they're just, you definitely need a lot more specific nutrition for you. So the most successful path to weight loss isn't a one-size-fits-all way. One element is usually not going to be enough. It's a connection to many different things all at once. So for example, in my own practice, as with any good nutritionist or dietitian, they'll be looking at all kinds of things. And so it's really important to see someone who can help you with all of that. So there'd be all kinds of things from just metabolic measurements, like the indirect telemetry I was talking about earlier, that people who sign up will get. Cooking skills. This is a picture of our Gig Harbor office kitchen. Supplements will be looked at. DNA markers. We have a really good test for that based on University of Toronto that looks at 70 different nutrition and fitness markers, because each person is different. And I'm a true believer that that is why a lot of the studies are just all over the place. That's because caffeine and saturated fat will affect one person differently than another. So that's why some of these studies are coming out. They're so confusing, because you kind of have to look at the people that you're testing. We have food sensitivity testing, which is not the typical IgG testing. It is a LEAP MRT one. And I've seen a lot of really good results with clients for the last 13 years of using that test. It's basically reducing inflammation. So I had a client one time who came to me a while back, and she lost 30 pounds. And I'm more of a calorie counter and at least food journal kind of person. And she didn't even do that. And she lost 30 pounds just by reducing the foods that she was, or eliminating the ones that it showed that she was having inflammation towards, and only eating the foods that it provided. Because most IgG tests, they will tell you what to avoid, but they won't tell you what to eat. And so the LEAP MRT tells you what to actually eat. So it's a really good test for anyone who has pretty certain that they're getting headaches and different symptoms that are coming from delayed food sensitivities, not allergies. That's a whole different area. So I don't want to throw too much all at once here, but there's just many, many tools is basically what I'm trying to get at. There are a lot of tools My first sessions with clients are usually at least an hour and a half long, usually, because there are a lot of factors and lifestyle factors we look at when it comes to, a person's life and their diet. Mental, emotional factors, just so much more. So those places that you can go online to get nutrition advice and health advice are a great starting point, but there's really just a lot more. Hold on while I get caught up here with my slides. So again, the best weight loss plan will be a multifaceted one and look at whole body health. So that really is the best way to go. And I've seen clients do very well on it. So they're not just losing weight, they're also getting a lot more energy. That's a big one. They feel great. I can tell their mood is actually better. There's just so much more that is improved, not just. Okay, so intuitive eating and mindful eating. Intuitive eating is kind of an umbrella term for avoiding emotional eating and also just incorporating mindful eating. And it really is really great. It's a great thing. And I've incorporated that into with the work with my clients. However, there is one major drawback with it. We live in a hyper-palatable, toxic food environment. It's full of addictive foods. That's usually coming from all the flavor enhancers and just things that change the food chemistry-wise to make it much more appealing to people, including preservatives, and to make it look appealing as well. So there's so much of that. And especially, I'm going to focus on the flavor enhancers here when I'm saying this. But basically, if you are trying to avoid emotional eating and being mindful of when you're hungry and when you're not, how is that going to work if these foods are sabotaging and short-circuiting is a term I'm using, short-circuiting your hunger and fullness cues? For example, if you look at the book, it was a really, really good book by Michael Moss, who is a researcher who studied this. He basically found out that, for example, some chips and fluffy types of chips, like, I'm trying to think of one, like, don't want to name any names, but you know what I mean. Just the ones that are similar to just like, they're just kind of puffy, and you eat them. Those are what's called, they're using a principle called vanishing caloric density. And it goes into more detail in this book. But the whole idea the food industry is trying to do there, who make these kind of products, who use this type of technique, they're trying to get it to where when you eat the snack, it feels like you haven't eaten hardly any calories. But you've just put away 200 to 300 calories by the time you're done with the bag. And it's so yummy, isn't it? It's really good. So, you're thinking, you're going back to this, the mindful eating. Well, mindful eating is great, but if you're eating those kind of foods, it's going to be a little bit hard to be mindful. So that's just something to keep in mind. I still think that intuitive eating is extremely powerful, and I do promote that with my clients. That's definitely something that goes in the mix. So what can we do about this? Still incorporate intuitive eating and not get sabotaged with the food industry and what they're doing with the snacks and some of the TV dinners and whatever else that they're making. Try to eat mainly a whole foods diet. If you do that, then intuitive eating will go very well with that. Because I think I've had enough of this apple. I think I've had enough of this broccoli. I've had enough of whatever it is that you're eating. The homemade foods, cook more from scratch at home. So that also you're not using as many of those flavor enhancers, whatever it might be. MSG and other things, autolyzed yeast extracts, just so many. Getting rid of processed addictive treats and foods from your life, avoiding them or making them just on rare occasions or just at a party or when you're with, like a birthday or something like that. Just trying to make them as rare as possible, because they've shown that if you're really getting rid of things from your life and just saying no to things, then you might tend to want them more. So that could backfire. That's not always a good idea. Kind of, it's a case by case basis. Some people actually do well with just writing it out, and other people it seems to rebound. Okay, the next myth is, and I've seen this so long now, it's been going on for so long, since Atkins to paleo to now keto, is we have to run away from the carbs. We have to get rid of them, eat as few as possible. How can we uncarb everything? So it's just kind of sad, because not all carbs are created equal. So what we're basically doing is throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because a lot of the carbs in our food industry looks like this, right? They're just everything from the white pasta to the white shell of the burrito to the white bread is just white, white, white. And so what happens is that does, they found now the connection to heart disease and all kinds of things, just excessive carbohydrates, diabetes, especially through weight gain. And so definitely it's stripped of the wheat German bran, hardly has any fiber or protein. There's a few nutrients added back in because of the government regulations. It turns to sugar very quickly in the bloodstream, which is why children and other people just find it so appealing. And does not hold your fullness very long at all. So you could eat a slice of bread like this and just be hungry literally in 30 minutes to an hour, because it just, if you chew saltine crackers or, simple bread like this in your mouth, the amylase is breaking down the starch, and just within if you don't spit it out within a few minutes, it's just literally sweet because it's already being broken down to sugar in your mouth. So, okay, now the whole grains, on the other hand, are a whole different story. So I'm thinking Dave's Killer Bread, I'm thinking Ezekiel bread, I'm thinking, whole anything that has the word whole in it. And that's the first ingredient. So it's usually sprouted breads too, I should say, which includes Ezekiel. So very close to the natural state, not as processed, has the wheat germ and the bran intact. So usually has lots more protein and fiber per each slice. And just like the white counterpart, blah, blah, blah. So the thing is just that we don't have to get rid of our carbs to lose weight. The problem has been for a very long time is that the carbs usually look like this. And of course they taste yummy and we want more of it. It's not keeping us full. So we eat a lot of it. We have weight gain. And now we're thinking we have to get rid of all carbs. But that's really not the problem. The problem is just that we're not eating enough of this. In fact, this is also very good for the gut biome too. It's got a lot of really good fiber. And so I don't know if you've heard about the gut biome. That's been the latest rage too. But the gut biome is the trillions of bacteria cells in our gut. And the fiber, the beneficial bacteria loves that. And whenever the gut biome is happy, we're happy as well. So these whole grains can be just about in any form that you can see here. Yes, some people have celiac disease. Very, very, very few people have celiac disease, actually full blown, where they just cannot handle any gluten whatsoever. But there are some non-celiac gluten intolerances, but you really should get tested before you assume that you should not have gluten. So that's something to consider. I always ask my clients, okay, so they say they're sensitive to wheat. So I say, okay, did you have something with 100% wheat? Or was it something else? Could have been the tomato sauce, or could have been the butter, or could have been something else. So just make sure it is that wheat before you get rid of it. And some people really just don't do well with a lot of starches and grains. So, we have to, it's a case by case basis, really. So eating whole grains instead of refined grains substantially lower the total cholesterol, low density lipoprotein, cholesterol, triglycerides, insulin levels. That's from Harvard, another source I really like. I didn't add to that on the list, but I like them too. So yeah, whole grains is very good. And again, not a whole lot of them for most of us, because a lot of them, just if you're like me, we're in front of a computer a lot. We're not out, being a construction worker or working for Parks and Rec or who knows what, physical labor kind of jobs. So yeah, so a lot of us are not full-blown athletes. So the carbs are not going to be that much, but it doesn't mean we have to just get rid of them either. So I really think that's a myth. And so that was me getting a little bread happy there. And I don't know if that's a whole grain. I want to say it's not, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what kind of bread that was that I had around my face. So anyway, refined carbs in the form of white bread, pasta, rice, and starches have been surely connected to excessive weight gain and ill health. And they're finding that even more than like meat and cholesterol and saturated fat, the carbs are almost as bad. But the complex carbs, on the other hand, if in small portions, go back to my plate, it's just a small amount. If you're really not very active, think like open face sandwich or some of those wellness wraps or something like that, or just maybe smaller tortillas or just smaller portions, but are actually very healthful, high in protein, fiber, vitamins, and minerals as well in that bran and that germ that they strip away to get to the white flour. So many low carb diets are demonizing the carbs, but they're not differentiating the two types of carbs. So that's really, really important. Okay, so on to the next myth. I've heard this a lot, and I try not to take it personally, but they say they've tried everything. And then I say, well, have you seen a registered dietitian long-term? And so, no, they haven't. I had an 18-year-old client. This is so sad. I had an 18-year-old client a while back, And I don't know if you guys know about the 20-minute rule, but that's, you know, the 20 minutes you have to wait to make sure you're full. It has to go with the whole intuitive eating thing again. And they hadn't heard about that in so many different weight loss tools out there. But guess what? She's now a candidate for bariatric surgery at 18 years old. So all you people listening who, you know, you've been on all these weight loss things, you picked up quite a lot of knowledge, right? It's a lot of stuff. Well, this young lady of only 18 years old, and I don't know what happened. They get into the hospitals, they get into their presentations, and oh, bariatrics can be so great. And it has some benefits, but again, choose your heart. I mean, I've seen a lot of people with bariatric surgery who now they can never eat any kind of bread anymore. They can never certainly go enjoy buffet, which I love. Can you believe it? I love buffets, but I know how to handle them. But, you know, I like the choices there. And so you have to be very careful. A lot of them can't have some kind of soda. There's usually something, and you're tied to your supplements. You're tied to them for the rest of your life, especially B12 and several others that you have to be taking. And so again, choose your heart, right? And so again, the myth here, though, back to this, though, is that a lot of people have not tried everything. So I would really, it's a little tout here for my own profession. Yes, it is a very blatant touting here, but there's just the weight loss market is so saturated. And I don't have a study to back this up or anything, but dietitians, I think my colleagues would agree, they're really underutilized, especially for weight management. It's just faster to go to the first fad or the first program that you see. But basically, a huge tout here for a profession. Registered dietitians are the said experts in nutrition. I know there's some nutritionists out there who have a very, very, very good resume, and that's great. I don't know how they're being held accountable, if they are not. But for registered dietitians, not only have the board exam and all these other things they have to do, but they have to collect 75 continuing education credits every 5 years. And so, yes, we have to constantly looking at webinars and reading books and things like that to, and if they're not doing it, then the word registered gets stripped from that title. So you're now a dietitian, but you're not registered, which I hardly ever see. So anyway, they are just very good at providing evidence-based sciences and coaching as well. A lot of them are picking up coaching. And so I've heard a lot of people say, are you sure you're not like a therapist? Because you sound like a therapist. You know, are you a psychologist? Like, no, I'm not. It just sounds like it. So, and I really refer to therapists all the time for things like marital issues or major stress or things that are just totally out of my out of my area. So, but yes, there is some definitely intuitive eating, emotional eating, mindful eating, just looking at some things food related that, and it ends up being, you know, some motivational interviewing, things like that. So studies have shown that patients working long-term with dietitians are great. I've heard of clients come to me saying, well, yeah, I saw one for a couple of times. No, I've seen some clients for literally years, 2 or 3 years now, some longer. And so it's really great. I love working with them, and they're just learning a lot of lifetime skills. And so that's another thing. There have been a few studies showing the benefits of working with dietitians. So you might want to check those out too. Okay, so some of them, they work all over the place, but me, I work in private practice. A lot of them, people don't realize that dietitians are often in network with many insurance plans. So I'll show you my list in a little while, but I definitely take insurance. And a lot of people don't know that if they're 65 or older, that Medicare pays for if you have diabetes or kidney disease, has usually pretty good benefits to see a dietitian. So a lot of my clients are not paying hardly anything when they come to see me, even after working for a long time with me. So you can get, well, usually what I ask, like, what would you like from me? How can I help you? A lot of them are saying accountability. So accountability, support, and education. So if you are the type of person who likes that one-on-one and it's not an app or a, you know, just something like that, or a program like that, then yes, definitely. Although I have an app too, but yes. So if you like to work with a real life person. Okay, so working onward here, the tip that I'd like to give you is that it's very important for consistency. That is the number one thing that I see. I see people falling off of whatever it is they chose to do. And so that the consistency is not there. And that means that you will still be doing what you were doing. Maybe let's say you're food journaling, you're eating more vegetables or whatever it is that you're doing, but you have to keep doing that. So how do you do that? Because so many of the people, they do that. In fact, even coming to see me, they'll drop off after a while, and that's not consistency either, right? So I have some tips for you on how to keep that consistency. It's a little 3-step process here. First of all, you develop a plan, preferably with a nutrition professional. And that person will help you develop with all those other things I showed you before. It could be testing, or it could be just counseling, or different things. Looking at your lifestyle is a big one. And nutrition education is huge. Labs are a big one too. And we order labs, by the way, too. And so you develop that plan, right? And then number 2 is called, it incorporates visual imagery, but you envision your success in as much detail as you can. And so you envision that. So I've talked to people, and it's surprising to hear sometimes how I'll say, well, where do you want to go? How do you see yourself, where you want to be, like that healthier weight range, or all these things, are the more energy or and I ask them to picture that, but they haven't done it yet. So that's like saying, you know, you're going somewhere, but you don't have a map, or you don't have I had it worked out in my head how to explain this better to you, but it's just dark. The path is dark. So that doesn't sound very fun, does it? It's more fun when you kind of know what you're going to do, and you can envision it. You can see how beneficial it will be. And believe it or not, some people may actually think they want it, but there are things holding them back. So they actually don't want it as much as they thought they did. And so that's where some of the people start asking, why are you a counselor, a therapist? And, you know, I'm not, but I can help them just start noticing some things. And that's when they can hopefully take it to their another person that they're working with to go a little deeper on that. But it's very important, because if you envision your success, some things may come up that make you realize, well, I got to get that. This is literally what one person has told me, like, well, they have to get the skin surgery to remove the skin. They don't have the money for that. Or their spouse may not like it, or they might feel weak or thin, like they're male, and they might feel like, you know, they might get beat up more because they had that when they were a child. So they feel like they have to kind of look bigger now. And so they're kind of feeling vulnerable now that they're smaller. So there could be some things. So it's very important to kind of screen that in your mind to make sure this is really what you want. So thankfully, most of my clients have been where they really, really want to. But, you know, if not, that's something that definitely needs to be dealt with. So I lied. I said 3 steps. Is actually 4, but make sure they're supposed to be combined. But basically, here's the thing. If you, the main thing I was trying to say, the main one tip though, was to make it a habit. So we all have bad habits, right? Well, you also have some good habits. And so the very important part of this is to take those good habits and build on them and make them more and more, and make them. So when you have all these good habits, that sounds like consistency, doesn't it? Now you're being consistent because this has become a habit. So if you, it could be like a walk after dinner, or dancing every Friday night, even if it's going out, or staying in and just dancing. It could be anything, but those are fun things that you started doing that became a habit. So now it feels weird if you're not dancing on Friday night. It feels weird if you don't go out to walk after your dinner. So because it's become a habit. So whatever good habits you already have, and then to just build on them, is to create that consistency. So that's my favorite tip.
Hey, Kathy, we have a quick question.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
Yes, I think that intermittent fasting definitely has some benefits. There's different kinds. I think that, oh, I do have so much to say about it. Let's say, okay, so let me break it down. Okay, so there are different kinds. And so the one that's my most favorite is the one that has the widest window of eating, because there are a lot of nutrients. You know, that should have been one of my myths, is that you have to cut back a lot when you're dieting. And that might sound crazy, but actually a new thing on the streets with dietitians is what you tell people about how much they actually have to eat. Because if you think about, oh, I can't eat this anymore, I can't eat that, that's not fun. After a while, you're going to get drained of that. But instead, think of how a lot of my clients don't eat enough protein. Almost all of them are not getting enough calcium. Most of them are not getting enough fiber. So think about all the things you have to get in. And so when I think of intermittent fasting, I think it's great. However, there is a great risk of not getting enough of what you need in. And it's not really safe to rely heavily on supplements and vitamins either. For example, folate is safer than a lot of folic acid. There have been some issues with folic acid in supplement form, increasing the risk of some kind of cancers, for example, or calcium supplements. You certainly don't want those from supplements. You want those from food. And that's really hard because people who are avoiding dairy, which are a lot of people are avoiding dairy, which there's some good reasons to do that as well. that's a huge area of calcium just taken out of the diet. So now you're stuck to the kale, broccoli, collard greens, and things like that. So, I would just say that there's a 16-8 one that I think that's one, yeah, that I like. So basically just having as big a window as you can to still get maybe 2 meals and a really good hearty snack in there. So at least you can get, and they're all should be very healthy and nutrient packed. I think it's one of the most effective things to me, I think, about intermittent fasting is not only the blood sugar benefits that can come from that, if you don't have diabetes, that is, but also training your brain of how to deal with emotional eating. Because when you're not eating during that time and, oh gosh, I want to go eat something. Oh, but it's not my window. What can I do about that? Instead of going to emotional eating, if you're not really hungry, it forces you to kind of train that part of your brain. So that's one thing I do like about intermittent fasting. I think it can work. If it works for you, then that's great. If there are other issues like diabetes and things like that, where you can have low blood sugar and some other conditions. Oh, another thing could be with any of these diets is eating disorders or eating disordered mentality. There's a list of things that can be something to look into if you're going to look into intermittent fasting, but there's some benefits. So I hope that kind of answered your question. As long as you think that you're getting enough nutrition and it's working for you and it can work with your kind of schedule and lifestyle, and you can just get right back on, like after a party or something you have to go to, just whatever it is, if it's sustainable and it's working for you, I end up telling clients all the time, well, I wasn't too crazy about that idea, but it's working for you. So, we'll keep an eye on it, but so it's very individualized, really. So I hope that answered that. Okay. And so where were we on this? Thank you for that. Okay. So envisioning that as much as possible. And then, like I said before, just developing habits, good habits. So, but, because we all have our bad habits, right? So just developing those good habits. Okay, so in conclusion, it's just very, very tempting to say, hey, that person lost all that weight and I think I could do it too, but we have to kind of just be very cautious. And I would really recommend seeing your local really good nutritionist or experienced, dietitian to help you to screen some of these things to make sure that it's okay. And so avoiding that temptation and adding personalization to whatever you are trying to go with. There's a lot of good health information out there online, actually, but just maybe some more personalization and working with a professional. They always say, like, you have your family dentist or doctor, but I really firmly believe you should have a family dietitian. So, you can bring family members there and everyone can, at least, even if everyone's healthy, just kind of have a yearly check-in, make sure there's no questions and make sure everything looks like it's being gone in the right direction. And so we were meant as humans to consume complex carbs. They've had some really good studies that came out that showed that the longevity, when they looked at longevity, people were eating, roughly around 50% carbs, but healthy carbs. And so very high or very low carbs were not, I don't have the study for this to show you right here, but it was an interesting study. It was like looking at diets around the world. And intuitive eating can work much better if you avoid highly processed foods and stick to whole foods. This is my take on that, because if you're eating highly processed treats and snacks, they're made to be very Moorish, as Michael Moss put it in his book that I mentioned earlier. So they're literally designed to make you eat more of it. So, it's going to be going to be battling intuitive eating. Intuitive eating is a little bit harder, with that going on. So eating more whole foods would definitely keep you to where intuitive eating is, hey, this is kind of working, just tuning in to your cues. And so again, please don't say you've tried everything unless you have worked with a dietitian. You might have to see more than one, it may not work with the chemistry with the right one, just find another one. A lot of them are doing Zooms all over Washington State now. So yeah, and the bonus tip was to build consistency by creating the little habits that you actually love. And it's just stacking them more and more. One of the myths is that there's, my slides are not synced. Okay, backing up. Okay, so these are just some of the things that I do here at Lighthouse Nutrition and Wellness. We have the DNA nutrition testing, which I really love. It has some fitness markers too. The LEAP MRT food sensitivity testing and diet therapy, which includes the menu as well. With my help, it gives you the foods to eat, and I help you with actual menu. Let's see here. I have my own long-term weight management program, which has all kinds of features, and including the app with private sharing. And we have a customized meal planning service that has been just growing and getting better and better every year, and is really, really phenomenal right now. And so it's extremely customized. So I really do like that. And we're getting a lot of people saying they have, it's really for people who are kind of struggling, like they've been going to Pinterest and going to different recipe areas and places online, and they're just getting a little burned out on what to make. And it can even be set up for a whole family even. So it's really cool like that. And it is another myth that, dietitians are expensive. There are a lot of dietitians who take insurance. And so these are all my current plans right now. And so if you have yours on here, we do have a biller who can look at that and give you a little report as to whether it looks like it's going to cover or not. And even if you don't turn on here, there could be out-of-network plan benefits. So meaning that you might pay up front, but then they'll, your insurance plan will give you a check in the next couple of weeks of 60% of what you have to spend. So that's really nice. I really like that too. Okay, so again, I wanted to remind you that whoever signs up with me in the next, and it could be even for just, it doesn't have to be a major program. It could just be even a one-time, I don't recommend that if it's weight loss. I definitely, the program's much longer. But even if it's just a few visits, then you still would receive these gifts, which is a very good value. And I'm trying to do something different this time and add a little bit more incentive. And so that is that. And you can feel free to reach out with any more questions about that anytime. And so there's a little bit more of my information for you. And that is it. That's all I have for you today.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Cathy. Wonderful.
You're welcome, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Yes.
So I'll just leave this contact information up here for a little bit longer and see if there's any other questions I could try to answer for you.
Definitely. We're going to stop the recording here and just open up the Zoom meeting for questions.
Okay.